Lyraen had witnessed many injustices in her long life, but watching the Galactic Council condemn an innocent human to death, while his alien wife sobbed in the gallery, was something that would haunt her forever, especially since she was the only one who knew the truth that could save him. The council chamber stretched vast and cold, a cathedral of chrome and crystalline viewports that opened onto the infinite void. Lyraen stood in the observer's gallery, her fingers gripping the rails so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Empress and Ashira coiled around her shoulders, their small dragon bodies tense with anxiety she could feel echoing through their bond. Below, on the judgment floor, Captain Marcus Webb stood in isolation, a human man surrounded by a semicircle of the galaxy's most powerful representatives. He wore the remnants of his uniform, torn and bloodstained from the battle that had brought him here. His hands were bound in energy restraints that glowed an angry red, and his face was set in grim acceptance. Lyraen had met Marcus 3 months ago on the human diplomatic vessel Star Runner. She'd been traveling with the human delegation as a cultural liaison, her expertise in ancient languages making her valuable to their missions. Marcus had been assigned as her military escort, a quiet man with kind eyes who'd treated her and her dragons with respect rather than the curiosity or fear she'd grown accustomed to from other species. They'd become friends. More than friends, if she was honest with herself. But now he was about to die, and she was the only one who could prove his innocence. If only she could reach the evidence in time. Captain Marcus Webb of Earth, intoned Counselor Thrix, a towering insectoid whose compound eyes reflected the chamber's harsh light. You stand accused of the murder of Ambassador Kavrith of the Zuan Collective. The evidence is irrefutable. Your weapon, your DNA at the scene, 17 witnesses who saw you flee. How do you plead? Marcus's voice was steady, despite everything. Not guilty, Counselor. I was framed. A ripple of dismissive chittering and mechanical clicks echoed through the council representatives. Lyraen felt sick. She knew Marcus was telling the truth. She'd been investigating the real murderer for weeks, following a trail of corrupted data and falsified records. But the proof was locked in an encrypted file on the Star Runner, and the ship had been impounded pending the trial's conclusion. She'd tried to access it remotely, failed, tried to petition the council for a delay, been denied. Now she was running out of time, and Marcus was running out of life. The council finds your defense unconvincing, said Counselor Yara, a crystalline being whose voice chimed like breaking glass. The penalty for murdering a council ambassador is death. Immediate and irreversible. No. The scream tore through the chamber like a blade. Every head turned toward the disruption. A young woman, barely more than a girl, stood in the gallery across from Lyraen. She was Zan, the same species as the murdered ambassador, with pale blue skin and dark eyes that shimmered with tears. She wore simple civilian clothes, and her hands clutched the railing as if it was the only thing keeping her upright. You can't, she cried, her voice breaking. Don't kill my husband. The chamber erupted into chaos. Marcus's head snapped toward the girl, his expression transforming from resignation to horror. Sera, no, silence. Thrix's command cut through the noise like a whip crack. The counselor's attention fixed on the Xian girl Sera with predatory intensity. Explain yourself, child. What madness is this? Sera was shaking, but she didn't back down. Captain Webb is my husband. We were married 4 months ago on the colony world of Theta Prime. He didn't kill Ambassador Kavrith. He couldn't have. He was with me when it happened. Lyraen's breath caught. She'd known Marcus was protecting someone, had seen the way he refused to provide an alibi despite it meaning his death. But the implications crashed over her like a tidal wave. Interspecies marriage between humans and Zan wasn't illegal, exactly, but it was so taboo that it might as well be. The Zuan Collective viewed such unions as betrayals of genetic purity. If Sera had revealed this secret publicly, she'd just destroyed her own life to save Marcus's, and Marcus had been willing to die rather than expose her to that fate. Counselor Thrix leaned forward, mandibles clicking with agitation. "You claim to be married to the accused?" "Yes." Sera's voice grew stronger. "I can provide documentation. Marriage certificates, witnesses. We were together in our quarters on the Star Runner when the murder occurred." "He's innocent." "This is a transparent fabrication," hissed another counselor, a Zan elder named Vorath, whose skin was darker than Sera's, almost purple with age. "The girl is clearly delusional or coerced. No Zan of sound mind would bond with a human." "I'm not delusional," Sera shouted. "And no one coerced me. I love him." Marcus was struggling against his restraints now, his voice desperate. "Sera, please, don't do this. They'll exile you." "Your family is dead to me already," Sera said, tears streaming down her face. "The moment they arranged my marriage to Ambassador Kavrith without my consent. The moment they told me my life wasn't my own to choose." She looked at Marcus with such fierce devotion that Lyraen felt her own throat tighten. "You're the only family I need, and I won't let them kill you for a crime you didn't commit." The gallery was silent now, every observer transfixed by the raw emotion on display. Lyraen's mind raced. This changed everything. If Sera could prove Marcus's alibi, it would create reasonable doubt. But it would also raise new questions about why someone would frame Marcus for Kavrith's murder, and whether that someone was in this very chamber. She thought about the encrypted file, about the evidence she'd been gathering, about the pattern of corruption she'd uncovered that pointed to someone high in the Council's ranks orchestrating not just Kavrith's death, but a conspiracy that reached far deeper than a simple murder. Empress chirped softly against her neck, and Lyraen felt the dragon's concern. They were in danger now. All of them. Because if the real murderer was here, watching this unfold, they'd be desperate to silence anyone who could expose them. Counselor Thrix's mandibles clicked in a rhythm Lyraen had learned meant calculation. "These are serious claims. If true, they would require us to re-examine the evidence." The counselor's compound eyes fixed on Sera. "But they also raise questions about your own involvement. Young Zun, why did you not come forward with this alibi before?" Sera's expression crumbled. "Because Marcus told me not to. He said, revealing our marriage would destroy me. That he'd rather die than see me exiled and shamed." "Noble," Thrix said, the word dripping with sarcasm. "Or convenient. Perhaps you both conspired to murder Kavrith, your arranged betrothed, to free yourself from an unwanted marriage." "That's insane," Marcus roared. Sera had nothing to do with. An explosion rocked the council chamber. The crystalline viewport behind Counselor Yara shattered. Decompression alarms screaming as atmosphere began venting into space. Emergency shields slammed into place, but not before the blast threw counselors and observers to the ground. Lyraen crashed against the railing, her dragons shrieking as they struggled to maintain their grip on her shoulders. Through the chaos and smoke, she saw figures in dark combat armor rappelling through the breach. They moved with military precision, weapons raised, heading straight for the judgment floor. Straight for Marcus. And in that moment, Lyraen realized with crystal clarity, the real murderer wasn't just in the chamber. They were here to finish what they'd started. Sera's scream cut through the sirens. "Marcus!" The League attacker raised their weapon. Finger tightening on the trigger, Lyraen's hand went to the data chip, hidden in her pocket, the one piece of evidence she'd managed to download before losing access to the Star Runner. The proof of Marcus's innocence. The identity of the real killer. She had seconds to decide. Stay hidden and hope the evidence survived whatever was about to happen. Or reveal herself and become a target. Empress and Ashura's claws dug into her shoulders. And through their bond, she felt their answer. Lyraen vaulted over the gallery railing. her dragons taking flight as she dropped toward the judgment floor below, shouting words that would either save Marcus Webb or doom them all. "Stop! I know who really killed Ambassador Kavrith." Every weapon in the chamber swiveled toward her. Lyraen hit the ground in a combat roll she'd learned from human soldiers, Empress and Sera diving to flank her as energy bolts seared the air where she'd been a heartbeat before. The attackers redirected their fire, but Council security was already moving, creating a chaotic crossfire that turned the chamber into a war zone. "Hold your fire!" Councillor Thrix's voice boomed through enhanced speakers. "Everyone cease!" The command carried enough authority that both sides hesitated. Lyraen used the moment to sprint toward Marcus, her hand thrust high with the data chip visible between her fingers. "I have proof," she shouted. "Evidence that will expose who really murdered Ambassador Kavrith, and why." The lead attacker's helmet turned toward her, and even through the armor's blank faceplate, Lyraen felt the weight of their attention. Then they made their choice. The attacker lunged not toward Marcus, but toward Lyraen, clearly intending to destroy the evidence before it could be revealed. Sera moved like blue lightning. The dragon intercepted with a burst of flame, not enough to seriously harm through military armor, but enough to force the attacker back. Empress followed with a precision strike at the helmet's visual sensors, her copper claws leaving deep scratches across the tactical display. "Protect the elf," Councillor Thrix commanded. Council security formed a barrier around Lyraen, their weapons trained on the attackers who'd breached the chamber, but Lyraen's attention was caught by something else. One of the councillors, Vorith, the elderly Zun who'd called Sera delusional, was moving toward an exit with suspicious urgency. Their eyes met for just an instant, and Lyraen saw recognition there. "And fear. Stop Councillor Vorith." Lyraen pointed. "They're the one behind this." Vorith froze, their purple skin darkening to almost black. "Preposterous. I am a council elder. You're the one who arranged Sera's marriage to Ambassador Kavrith," Lyraen said, her voice carrying across the chamber as security sealed the exits. "And when Kavrith discovered your embezzlement, schemed the one where you'd been siphoning funds from Zahan Colony development for decades, you had him killed and framed Marcus to cover your tracks." The chamber went deathly silent, Vorith's expression twisted with rage. "You have no proof. The ravings of an elf and a treasonous girl mean nothing. I have all the proof I need." Lyraen held up the data chip. "Financial records, communications, and security footage from the Star Runner showing your agents planting evidence in Marcus's quarters." She turned to face the full council. Ambassador Kavrith was an honest man. When he audited the colony development accounts as part of Sera's marriage negotiations, because he actually cared about ensuring her family's finances were legitimate, he found massive discrepancies. He was going to expose Vorith at this very council session. "So you killed him," Marcus said, his voice rough with fury. He was on his feet now, security having released his restraints in the confusion. "And you framed me because I was convenient. A human who'd been alone in the corridor near Kavrith's quarters. Easy to blame. Easy to execute." Sera pushed through the crowd, reaching Marcus's side. He immediately pulled her close, despite the hundreds of eyes watching them. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I never wanted you exposed like this." "I know," she said, touching his face. "But I meant what I said. You're worth more than any reputation. Worth more than anything." Councillor Thrix extended a crystalline appendage toward Lyraen. "Surrender the evidence for official examination." Lyraen approached carefully, aware that the armored attackers Vorith's mercenaries, she assumed, were still present and dangerous. Empress and Sera maintained defensive positions, their eyes tracking every threat dot as she handed over the data chip. Movement exploded from Vorith's direction, The elderly Zahn produced a weapon from within their robes, a small but deadly plasma pistol aimed directly at Sera. If I'm to fall, the traitor who brought this upon me will fall first. Everything happened at once. Marcus threw himself in front of Sera, shielding her with his body. Lyraen's hand moved on instinct, grabbing one of the loose pieces of shrapnel from the earlier explosion and hurling it, with the enhanced strength her elven heritage provided. Council security opened fire, but it was Counselor Yara who saved them all, the crystalline being moved with impossible speed, their body reshaping into a barrier of hardened crystal between Vorath and the couple. The plasma bolt struck Yara's improvised shield and scattered harmlessly. Vorath had no time to fire again. Security restraints locked around their wrists and ankles, bringing the elderly Zahn crashing to the floor. "Seal the chamber completely," Thrix ordered. "Detain Vorath and their mercenaries. Begin analysis of the elf's evidence immediately." The counselor's compound eyes fixed on Marcus and Sera, who were still clinging to each other. "And someone get these two out of the line of fire." A human woman in council security uniform, her badge read Lieutenant Kara Morrison, approached with careful respect. "Captain Webb, ma'am, if you'll come with me. There are medical facilities where you can both be examined, and I'm not leaving until this is resolved," Marcus said firmly. "I want to see the evidence processed. I want to watch them acknowledge my innocence." Sera nodded against his shoulder. "We stay together." Lieutenant Morrison glanced at Counselor Thrix, who clicked their mandibles in what might have been approval or exasperation. "Very well. They stay under guard. What is your name?" "Lyraen of the Silverwood," she replied, her dragons returning to her shoulders now that the immediate danger had passed. "Lyraen of the Silverwood. You will explain how you obtained this evidence and why you waited until this dramatic moment to reveal it." Over the next hour, Lyraen detailed everything. How she'd noticed discrepancies in the initial investigation. How she'd befriended Marcus during their travels and knew his character made him incapable of cold-blooded murder. How she'd spent weeks carefully extracting data from restricted systems, building a case piece by piece while avoiding detection. "I wanted to present it properly, through official channels," she explained. "But every attempt was blocked. Messages went unanswered. Requests for investigation were denied. I realized someone with significant influence was actively working against me." "Vorath," Thrix said. The elderly Zahn was restrained nearby, silent and seething. Their position on the council gave them access to suppress evidence and fast-track this trial. They wanted Marcus executed before anyone could look too closely, Lyraen agreed. But they didn't count on Sera's courage. All eyes turned to the young Zen woman, who still stood with Marcus's arm around her waist. She looked exhausted and terrified, but also defiant. "I couldn't let him die," Sera said simply. "Even if it meant revealing everything. Even if it meant my people would reject me." She looked up at Marcus. "He showed me what it means to choose your own path. To value love over duty. That's what humans do. They make impossible choices, and somehow find the strength to live with the consequences." Marcus kissed her forehead gently. "You showed me that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what's right, even when you're terrified. That's what you did. That's what makes you extraordinary." Lyraen felt her chest tighten with emotion. This was the heart of humanity's strength, not their weapons or their ships, but their capacity to inspire others to be brave, to be better. Marcus was human, but he'd helped Sera discover her own courage. And Sera, in turn, had shown Lyraen that sometimes the most powerful evidence wasn't data on a chip, but the willingness to stand up and speak truth regardless of cost. Counselor Thrix's voice interrupted her thoughts. "The evidence has been processed and verified. Financial records confirm massive embezzlement by Counselor Vorath, spanning 43 standard years. Communications show clear conspiracy to murder. Ambassador Cavrith and Frame Captain Webb, security footage proves." Webb's innocence conclusively. The counselor's mandibles spread in what might have been satisfaction. Vorith, you are hereby stripped of your counsel position and remanded for prosecution on charges of murder, conspiracy, embezzlement, and obstruction of justice. Vorith finally spoke, their voice bitter with defeat. This is what comes of allowing humans into our affairs. Their chaos, their sentimentality, their pollution of proper order, their justice, Yara said quietly, the crystalline counselor's voice chiming through the chamber. Their refusal to accept convenient lies. Their insistence that truth matters more than political expediency. They turned to Marcus. Captain Webb, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer formal apology for the injustice you suffered. You are cleared of all charges and restored to your rank with full honors. Marcus nodded, but his attention remained on Sera. What happens to her? To us? The question hung in the air like a held breath. Counselor Thrix was silent for a long moment. Then, the marriage between Captain Marcus Webb and Sera. Vorith's daughter is legally recognized under galactic treaty provisions. However, the counselor looked directly at Sera. You understand that the Zeon Collective may not accept this. You may face exile from your people. I understand, Sera said. Her voice was steady now, certain. And I choose Marcus anyway. I choose the life we can build together over the life others tried to force upon me. Then you have the Council's recognition and protection, Yara said. Both of you. Lyraen watched as Marcus and Sera held each other, their relief and love so evident it made The emergency lighting cast blood-red shadows across the council chamber as Lyraen's hand instinctively moved to her dragons. Empress and Ashira tensed, their scales beginning to glow with the heat building in their throats. A warning that they sensed danger approaching. How many exits? Marcus asked, immediately shifting into tactical mode despite his exhaustion. He positioned himself protectively in front of Sera, his body language pure military precision. 4 main entrances, all sealed, Lieutenant Morrison reported, checking her tactical display. But there are maintenance shafts in the lower levels. If we can reach. The lights died completely. In the darkness, Lyraen's elven eyes adjusted faster than the others. She saw the shadowy figures dropping from the ventilation shafts overhead, at least a dozen. All armed, all moving with deadly purpose. These weren't Vorith's mercenaries. These were something worse. Council guard units, Morrison breathed in horror. They're our own people. Not anymore, said a voice from the darkness. A figure stepped into a shaft of starlight from the damaged viewport, and Lyraen recognized Counselor Dravexa, reptilian being she'd always considered one of the more reasonable members of the council. They serve a higher purpose now. The purpose of maintaining order in a galaxy that's becoming far too comfortable with chaos. Counselor Thrix's mandibles clacked furiously. Dravex, what is the meaning of this treachery? Treachery? Dravex's laugh was cold and harsh. I'm preventing catastrophe. Vorith's embezzlement was useful. It provided funds for our operations, but it was always secondary to our real goal. The reptilian counselor gestured toward Marcus and Sera. Stopping the contamination. The dilution of species purity through these ... unions. Understanding crashed over Lyraen like ice water. You're not here to silence witnesses. You're here to make an example. Finally, the elf understands. Dravex's eyes glittered with malevolent satisfaction. Vorith's arrest changes nothing. We have members throughout the council, throughout the galaxy. And we will not allow humanity's infectious ideals love without boundaries. Choice above tradition, individualism over collective good to spread any further. Sera's voice was small but defiant. You're afraid of us. Of what we represent. Afraid? Dravex moved closer, the corrupted guards forming a perimeter around the council members. No, child. We're simply realistic. Your marriage to the human is an abomination. A crack in the foundation of galactic civilization. Left unchecked, such cracks will bring everything crashing down. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. You're talking about genocide. About controlling who people can love. I'm talking about survival. Dravix's composure cracked, revealing the fanaticism beneath. Humanity has been in the galactic community for barely a century, yet look at the chaos they've sown. Mixed species colonies, cultural contamination, and now marriages that violate millennia of tradition. The counselor's gaze swept across the chamber. It ends tonight. Starting with you two. The guards raised their weapons. Lyraen didn't think. She moved. Empress and Sera launched from her shoulders in perfect synchronization. Twin streams of dragonfire illuminating the chamber like miniature suns. The flames didn't harm. Her dragons knew better than to kill, but they blinded, scattered, and created the chaos Lyraen needed. She grabbed a piece of debris and hurled it at the nearest guard's weapon, knocking it aside. Then she was moving through the crowd, her elven speed and grace making her nearly impossible to target in the confusion. "Morrison!" she shouted. "Get Marcus and Sera to the maintenance shaft." Now, the lieutenant didn't hesitate. She grabbed both of them, pulling them toward the lower levels while other loyal council security engaged the corrupted guards. Counselor Yara's crystalline body transformed again, creating barriers and shields to protect the retreating figures. But Dravix was faster than Lyraen expected. The reptilian counselor moved with serpentine speed, intercepting Morrison's group before they could reach safety. A guard's weapon fired, and Morrison went down with a cry. Clutching her leg, Marcus caught her before she fell. But now they were trapped, Dravix and 3 guards blocking their escape. The sounds of fighting all around them. "It's over," Dravix said, raising a weapon personally. "The humans will learn that their way, their chaos, their sentimentality has consequences." "No," the word came from Sera, who stepped in front of Marcus with her arms spread wide. "If you want to kill him, you'll have to go through me first." "Sera, don't." Marcus tried to pull her back, but she held firm. "I'm Zan," Sera said, her voice ringing with unexpected authority. "You claim to care about tradition and species purity. Then honor our oldest tradition, the sacred bond of witness protection. Any Zan who stands as witness to injustice has the right to shield the innocent with their own body. Will you violate that law, counselor? Will you murder one of your own to maintain your twisted vision of order?" Dravix hesitated, and Lyraen saw the calculation in those cold eyes. Killing Marcus was one thing, but killing a Zean woman who invoked ancient protective rights, that would turn even Dravix's allies against them. In that moment of hesitation, Counselor Thrix acted. The massive insectoid launched themselves at Dravix with surprising speed, mandibles clamping around the weapon and crushing it to sparking fragments. "Enough! I invoke Council emergency protocols. Dravix, you are relieved of authority pending investigation of treason." The corrupted guards wavered, clearly uncertain whether to fire on a council chair, and in that wavering, Lyraen saw their chance. Empress, Sera now. Her dragons dove toward the ventilation shaft Morrison had mentioned, their flames superheating the metal grate until it glowed orange. Lyraen added her strength to theirs, wrenching the weakened metal free and creating an opening. "Go," she shouted to Marcus and Sera. "Take Morrison and go." Marcus lifted the wounded lieutenant in his arms, Sera supporting them both as they scrambled toward the opening. But Marcus paused at the threshold, looking back at Lyraen. "I'm not leaving you. You're not leaving me," Lyraen said firmly. "You're protecting your wife. That's what humans do best. You protect the people you love, no matter the cost. Now go, and let me do the same for my friend." For a heartbeat, their eyes met, elf and human, 2 beings from different worlds united by friendship and shared values. Then Marcus nodded, understanding, and disappeared into the shaft with Sera and Morrison. Dravix roared in fury, trying to pursue, But Counselor Thrix held firm. "You'll have to go through me, traitor." More loyal guards were arriving now, summoned by emergency protocols. The corrupted ones were being systematically disarmed and restrained. Dravix, seeing defeat, tried to flee, but Counselor Yara's crystalline barriers blocked every exit. "It's over, Dravix," Yara said quietly. "Your conspiracy dies here." The reptilian counselor hissed in impotent rage as restraints locked around their limbs. "You're fools. All of you. Humanity's influence will destroy everything we've built, or perhaps," Thrix interrupted, "it will build something better. Something that values individuals over institutions. Love over law. Choice over compulsion." The counselor's compound eyes found Lyraen. "The humans have much to teach us if we're wise enough to learn." Lyraen felt her throat tighten with emotion. She thought about Marcus's willingness to die rather than expose Sera, about Sera's courage in claiming him as her husband before the entire council, about Morrison's immediate action to protect them both, about the loyal guards who'd fought against their own corrupted comrades rather than stand by while innocents were murdered. All of it, every act of courage and compassion had been inspired by or aligned with human values. The belief that love mattered more than tradition, that individuals had the right to choose their own paths, that justice was worth fighting for, even when it was difficult. This was humanity's true strength. Not their weapons or their ships, but their ability to inspire others to be brave, to be kind, to stand up for what was right, even when the entire galaxy tried to force them into silence. "Where's Marcus?" Lyraen asked, suddenly aware that time had passed and the fighting had stopped. A familiar voice answered from the maintenance shaft. "Right here. Morrison's being treated. She'd be fine." "And Sera?" Marcus emerged with his wife beside him, both of them dirty and exhausted but alive. "Sera wanted to come back. To see this through." Sera nodded, her hand firmly clasped in Marcus's. "We started this together. We finish it together." Counselor Thrix made a sound that might have been approval. "Then let it be witnessed and recorded. Captain Marcus Webb and Sera Webb, your marriage is recognized not just legally, but morally, by this council. May others find the courage to follow your example." Around the chamber, the remaining counselors, even those who'd seemed uncertain before, nodded in agreement. Change was coming to the galaxy. Change born from the simple human belief that love should never be a crime. Lyraen felt Empress and the Sera settle on her shoulders, their warmth and contentment flowing through their bond. She'd come to this council session expecting to witness an execution. Instead, she'd witnessed the birth of something far more powerful. Hope. Marcus approached her, Sera still at his side. "Thank you," he said simply. "For everything. For believing in me. For being brave enough to stand up when it mattered." "I learned from the best," Lyraen replied with a smile. "You humans have this annoying habit of making everyone around you want to